Hey everybody, this is Perch, and thanks for coming on Friday night or wherever you are. I see there's somebody in the chat from Australia, so it's early Saturday morning. But I'm glad you're here. I've got a new guest I haven't talked to before, but I'm excited to chat with him today. And we're calling you AI.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Excellent. And so for people who don't know you, I guess we'll kind of introduce a little bit here. You've got a campaign going on right now that is you've already funded.
Yep.
But it is still open. So I wanted to talk to you about that, what caused it, but we're just going to chat comics and everything else. So yeah, tell me about yourself.
So my background is in marketing mostly. I've been a comic fan. Well, actually, let me start from kind of sort of the beginning.
Yeah.
I was born in Pakistan, came here when I was 9 years old, and really discovered comics when I first got here. And one of the first comics I picked up was The World's Finest. And that just started a love affair with comics, even to this day. And I would say it helped me, learn English also when I was younger, reading the comics. So with the pictures and all that stuff. So it was really interesting. I've been in marketing for the past more than 20 years, with specializing in digital marketing and video production and that sort of stuff. Comics have always been, a love of mine, but I really kind of fell out of love with what the big two are producing. And we're in a very kind of special time now where we can create our own characters. And if you're serious about it, and if you're willing to put in the work for it, you can go on an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter and find like-minded people who are willing to support the project and kind of create your own characters moving forward. So you're not really reliant on the big two, or I guess we'll talk about this in the chat also. Is I feel like corporations are kind of taking over these characters, and I mean, I'll be honest with you, they're really ruining a lot of these characters, and I don't think they understand the audience. I don't think I don't know. I'm not happy where those companies are going, and a lot of my love really comes from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s comics and comic runs. So a year ago, I decided the company that I'm the publisher of, that I own, is called X53. I started it when I was 53, and I called it X because I didn't know where this thing was going to go. So when I started, so it was kind of like the unknown. So that's why the company's called X53. But it was about a year ago I decided I'm going to do my own character. Let's we're also in a time now where you can find writers, artists, colorists, whatever, and you're not limited by your geographic location. So when I talk about Arachna, it's a book that is that has got a creative group behind it. That's a global group. So there's people from Colombia, there's people from Bulgaria, Finland. So it's you can do this now. So, but it is a lot of work. What I've done for the past 6 months, where things got really serious with Arachna, is I have my full-time job that I work during the day, and then I work on Arachna at night and weekends. So it's quite a time commitment for this book.
Now, what are you doing with this book? Are you writing, or like what are the pieces that you're producing as part of it?
Yes, I would consider my role in this as kind of like a producer in a film, where you want to kind of get the talent, you want to kind of have the story that's in my head, and you want to give it to the writer to write it and the artist to draw it. So the concept is mine. I worked with a really talented writer, Marty. He's from Finland. So I gave him kind of like a story template, like here's what I want to see in this book. And then from there, we work pretty much every day on kind of writing the script and stuff. He writes the script. He does the writing. That's not my thing. I just want to make sure that my vision is kind of like intact in terms of what this book is and where we're going to go with this book. So we plotted out the second issue right now. The first issue, the script is done. Carlos, who is the artist on it, is doing the artwork on it. So really, the artwork needs to finish on this, and we're going to get started next week on that. I'm not waiting for the campaign to finish. We've already funded it, so
Nice.
I want to get the looking at some of these campaigns, and I see people that haven't delivered a book in 2 years. It's really
Doesn't help, right?
yeah, no, I don't think that's right, man. Because like really, these people are they believe in you. They're supporting you. These comics are not cheap. You're really funding an idea, and you just want to make sure that you are you get the book when it's supposed to be out. And having been in marketing where I have done, we've done printed pieces and stuff like that. You have to be on these things, but it's really important from a customer point of view that we deliver this book on time, and it's really important we stick to a timeline.
Yeah, I think people appreciate that. And the challenge with them, there's a little bit of an echo. I don't know if you can hear it on your end, but
no, I don't.
Okay. No, the challenge is that if you get, I think crowdfunding is tough for people. We've talked about it before on this show, and we've answered some questions from people. There is a link. I'll make sure the link goes into the description here. But if you search under Arachna on Indiegogo, I think it's on Indiegogo, not Kickstarter, right?
Yes, it's Indiegogo. Yeah.
Okay. So if you'll be able to find this relatively quickly, it's there. But we'll put a nice link in the description, the video as well. But like you mentioned, it has been fully funded, so it's really just jumping in on this. But it is the challenge that if you're kind of at the mercy of other people. If other campaigns are not delivering, if other people are late, it kind of gives the whole space a bit of a bad vibe. I mean, that can be a challenge for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, as a first-time publisher, I think people might be concerned there too, in terms of like, oh my God, this guy's got no background or whatever, and they're doing this book. So I wanted to get the book, at least from the artwork point of view, at least like a fifth of a way done. So just to show them that this is not something we're messing around with. I think it also helps that I'm not the writer on it or the artist on it. I'm more of kind of like the project manager on this thing as well. So I just want to make sure that we hit the dates we're supposed to hit. Having worked on 8 pages that are fully completed, meaning script, line work, colors, lettering, everything, I have an idea of how long that takes, and then that's where that date of October 2021 comes in as well. So, and again, I've already started talking to Carlos about let's put a timeline together, and we're going to start this next week.
So I've seen some of the art you posted, and it looks very distinctive. You got a nice property on your hands. How would you describe it? Is this what kind of audience is going to go for this? Is it all ages? I don't think it's all ages.
No, yeah, I think it's not like an R-rated book. It's more of, I would say, a PG-13.
Okay.
I would say it is a mature audience, but I mean, honestly, I go into like my local comic shops, and I don't see a lot of young people there. I see people in their 30s, 40s, 50s that are in there. So it's when I say mature, there's nothing really bad. There's nothing like that in it. It's just, I just feel like 18, 17. If you're 17, 18, whatever, it's fine. But it is designed for a mature audience. But I feel like that is our audience.
Yeah.
I just don't think kids read comics anymore. I mean, I tried to get my kid to read it, and they're more into like video games and Fortnite and that kind of stuff. So,
well, sure. It's a tough market. We were talking right before we went on the air about kind of the era of comics that we enjoyed. I mean, a lot of people, and I'm guessing people in the chat, because we've chatted about this before, they get they came into comics typically when they're younger, but today in 2021, it seems like it's a much harder lift to get people who are at a younger age into comics and all that stuff. It's just I
think where it went into direct market, I think, when I said I came here, I picked up my first comic, which was World's Finest. It was in the ShopRite, and they used to be in 7-Elevens and stuff, so there was more of an access to a quicker access to them. I know Walmart's trying to do their own thing now, but I think there's a lot of things competing for kids' attention. I think cell phones are one big thing where they're spending a lot of time on that. So, it's shifted. Like kids' interests have shifted into Instagram and TikTok and video games and apps, all this stuff, where comics aren't in the forefront of people's minds at this point. So I feel like the comic audience is now. I'm not sure like how what the manga audience is, but I feel like the U.S. audience, to me, I feel like it's just an older audience. I don't think a lot of kids are reading comics at this point.
Yeah, well, I think the audience is there. Oops, again, a little bit of an echo there. I think it may be coming on your end a little bit. But yeah, the interest is there. I think the kids would be happy to get comics, but it's just there's not a lot marketed toward them, or if they do, it's very heavily pushed there. But while we're getting into this, we do this every week. So I don't know about you, if you haven't seen the live streams before. What are we drinking today? I always I'm having a bit of smoked tequila. I don't know. Are you having anything to drink for tonight?
Just water.
Good for you. I appreciate that. No, I always love how we make Jeff Florin laugh whenever I show this stuff. I recommend this stuff, by the way. Tequila is not just for margaritas. You can have kind of sipping tequila. This is a smoked, very nice flavor, but I'm just going to, Perch is RH Slosh. There you go. Can't wait for that. Speaking of though comics coming out, I do this every week. I don't know if you've seen this. We look at the comics that are coming out next week, and this kind of identifies a little bit of the problem of the books that are being published every week. And there's 3 pages of them because there's so many books. Mm-hmm. And actually next Wednesday is kind of a low week. If that makes any sense. That is it's a smaller than usual week, and yet still I think we're well over 100 comics here. Yeah. But I'm curious, are you reading anything currently? Is there anything out of anywhere in the indies, the mainstream? What are you checking out right now?
Nothing new. What I do is I buy absolute editions, and I read those. So I'm reading like the Spider-Man McFarlane. I just picked that up. I was reading the She-Hulk Byrne. I picked that up a little while back on Amazon. It was sold out at first, and I had to kind of keep looking at it, and finally got it. Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'm reading that again.
All right.
So it's a little bit of mix of everything at this point, but more the older stuff, not the newer stuff. Yeah,
it's a lot of the older stuff's getting a second life. I've talked with Joe, and Joe may join us here a little bit later, but we getting some of the trades, getting some of these older issues back available in people's hands. Sounds like you got the John Byrne, the Alan Moore books. It is tough, but it is a lot of new content. I just kind of wonder if some of the content that's coming out today, as we look at these screens, I mean, are these titles going to be 20 years from now collected in an absolute edition or anything like that? It's hard to imagine some of these will.
That's funny. I mentioned this on my Indiegogo page, where on our Arachna pages. Are you going to be reading what you're reading from? Well, I was just kind of talking about the big two, but like, are you going to be reading this in 20 years? What's coming out these days, or even 5 years from now? Like, I'm reading stuff that's from the 80s, which was so long ago, and 90s and 60s and 70s. I'm just not sure if people are going to be reading this, even 5 years from now, pretty much.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot of these are being built in that way. I mean, the comics we don't have long runs. When I was talking with the video this morning where Joe and I were talking about the Captain America run by Grunwald, I mean, that's a decade run for a writer, and you can't. I mean, it's just hard to even kind of imagine a writer staying on a title that long now. Like, that would be just unheard of unless it was an indie book, and it feels like with shorter runs, you're even less likely to get some of these kind of more memorable things.
I think when you talk about some of these earlier runs where the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s type thing, I felt like there was a shift between something that was run by, and I'm not like privy to what was going on back in the 70s, 80s, whatever, but I felt like it was more of a creative teams run, where it shifted to an editor's, like, how they want to run things, or what like they have to sell over these crossovers, stories that kind of span multiple books, and I just that's where I kind of lost my interest in them, because I didn't want to read 6 different books to tell one story, and I feel like it's more of an editor influence type thing now, where I just, I mean, do you agree with that, or
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. It feels like more, you have these characters, these bands, they're being teed up for Netflix deals or movies or merchandising, and so it's more of a portfolio management as opposed to a comics writing. That's not to say that there's not creative ideas going into comics, but it just, like, I can't even begin to believe that a Marvel or a DC would say, hey, let's have a creative team be on this book for 3 or 4 years. It just doesn't seem like that's possible.
No, and they keep renumbering too, so it's like 6 issues, 10 issues, 12 issues, and then it just goes back to 1 again or whatever. So it's just I don't know. I just lost interest in them. Like I just there's nothing coming out that you kind of look at and go, let me check this out or whatever. I think the trades also, I think if there is something that comes out or starts getting a buzz, I'll start looking at some of the trades that are out there.
Yeah, it is more. It's one of the comments up here. Disposable media. That sounds more negative, but it seems like it's for more of a short term burn. It's not kind of no one's shooting for this kind of longer run. But in fairness, to your point, the creators aren't being hired for that. If you are a writer right now, and you're being kind of hired on 6 issues at a time, like half-year little stints, and you don't really know if there's any future, like it's got to be very hard to get something big and epic going in that space of time.
Yeah. And I think, again, with things like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, I know some of the creators are kind of moving towards, like, once you kind of make a name for yourself, you're kind of moving towards that anyway.
Yeah.
Now, Steve Scrocci, I haven't heard, like, I was a big fan of Steve Scrocci, so this post-Americana looks pretty interesting.
I like it. It's polarizing for people, and I'm not. I understand why, and I'm not. At the same time, I think some of the early criticism, I think, was a misunderstanding of the book, or maybe it came out when there was a lot of political upheaval, and so it got tagged kind of with that. But I think the book has gone in a very different direction. It's Mad Max. I've been enjoying it quite a bit. So I think it's worth picking up. That's definitely one that I'll be looking at next week. I think I'm curious what the new creative team on Batman, Superman is going to be like. There's a handful of things definitely coming out.
Is Steve doing the writing and art on this book, or?
He is. Yeah, it's all his. We did the interview with Steve, and he was great to give us the time, and I think it's a really good title. I like it, and I do think some people should. If you were avoiding this book because you thought you're just sick of politics and you thought it was going to be a commentary on American politics, you should pick it up again. It's not. It's not that. Now if you're bothered by massive violence, then this is not the book for you. This book has people's arms blowing off and cannibals and everything else. So it's definitely a very, very violent book. It's how would you describe post-Americana? It's a Mad Max plus kind of book. It's a lot. I don't know, it sounds like you're reading it. How would you describe it?
Me?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh no, I never even heard of it. So I just saw the cover and I saw Steve Scrocci. Yeah. And I'm just like such a huge fan of his that I haven't read it yet. So I'm actually gonna look into it.
Yeah, no, it's very, very violent. It's not. There is some cynicism to it, but it's a good book. I like some of the things it's doing. Steve comes up with really, really high concept ideas, and it's definitely that. So for sure. Here's a question. So what's the opinion on the topic from the latest video? How I can't tell modern writers apart? Yeah. So let me kind of set up kind of a little bit what this topic is about, because I was actually going to do a video kind of on this topic a little bit. The general idea that the current writers are basically writing very similar styles. It's harder to tell the voices. If you go back to the 90s, you could absolutely tell Michelini, Nacinta, a Byrne versus a Grunwald. You could definitely tell the writer's voice and the character. Mm-hmm. And a lot of comics today read very, very similar. So I'm curious, do you see the same, or how have you felt about that?
Again, I feel like it's it's the editor's medium now, right now, if it's Marvel or DC, and they're going to kind of fit you into a style that they want. And I think that's where that's coming from.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to see a, like a Dark Knight Returns or a Watchmen or anything like that from DC or Marvel moving forward. It's an editor's medium right now. If image is different. Image is, I think, more of a creator's medium. But Marvel and DC, I feel like they're more of that. So I agree with the fact that voice it has to be fit into a certain type of story or narrative. So they're going to make you kind of fit that.
Mm-hmm. No, there's a house style that's kind of developed.
Yeah.
I do wonder to some extent if it's in many ways it's a 2021 version of kind of what went on in the 90s, where it's a way to kind of protect some of the writers from getting kind of too big and being able to go off and do their own thing. But I don't know. It feels like a lot of these titles that it needs some MSG added to these books to give it some additional flavor.
Yeah, that kind of part of it also is like this kind of politically correct times we're in right now, where you can't upset. I think so. I don't know, I feel pretty strongly about this. Is like I think creators are sometimes afraid to put a story out there or put something out there that might get some sort of backlash, or this cancel culture and all this. It's so disturbing right now in this time that we're living in. That they're you don't want to have your livelihood taken away from you, and this is what this cancel culture is where they want you fired and they don't want you getting a job again or that type of stuff. So I think a lot of them, it might be that they're just scared of writing something that might have some shades of gray to it. I just don't see part of it. I don't see again, I'm just talking about Marvel DC, is I don't see that those chances being taken, and I think it's for a reason. I think also a lot of these creators are self-censoring themselves because of this as well. There used to be the Comics Code Authority that used to do that, but now I think it's these the mob on the Twitter, the PC correct mob and stuff like that. People who just get up and try to get offended by something or whatever. That's all they're kind of about. So it's really I've seen it not just in comics, but also the entertainment industry as a whole, like film, TV. I was watching. Me and my wife were watching The Sopranos again, and there's no way that show could run nowadays. But it's like one of the best shows of all time. Really changed the medium of television. But I don't think that type of show, even something like The Office, couldn't run nowadays, because I think people would get so upset about they get offended by everything. So I think that's part of it also.
Yeah, I mean, comics has a challenge. I think there's two things working against it. One is that it goes back again to if you're hiring a writer for 6 issues at a time, or a very short leash, short window, then they're going to write more conservative in a lot of cases, because you're trying to kind of keep that job going. You're more sensitive to maybe not putting all your ideas out on the table. Mm-hmm. And also pragmatic. If you've got a really amazing idea for a character or concept, then you're probably going to want to keep that idea for yourself for something in the indies. It's going to be a little trickier to get that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There was a lot of great characters created for Marvel DC, and I know later on they're able to get some sort of credit and payment for those characters still. But if I was a writer or an artist working for Marvel DC, I would keep those characters under wrap.
For
sure. I could go to Image, or I could go to Kickstarter or Indiegogo, wherever, where I have control of those characters.
It's definitely a factor, and I think on top of that, then from the other direction, and nobody's going to want to hear this, but it's it's just true. The big money in these properties is not in the comics. It's in licensing. It's in movies. You've got to coordinate all those things. If anybody's listened to the more recent interviews, like with Martha Thomas's and other pieces, and this was the early 90s, where they were, basically dictating that Superman and Lois couldn't get engaged in the comics because they wanted to save that for the TV show first. that's where the attention, the money is. That's yet another pair of handcuffs on these characters. And it's tough. I definitely think there's sensitivity to Twitter and kind of all that kind of the cultural elements, but there's also just a lot of mechanical things that makes it tough, like very, very tough.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I think the medium of comics, and this is when I got into actually working with Marty on the writing and the script and stuff, and then marrying that with the art from Carlos, and then marrying that piece with the colors and lettering. It's a pretty it's just a really great process to see something like that come together. And I'm not doing Arachna because I want to have a streaming deal with Netflix down the road. It's just like I really love comics, and I want to create something that I would want to read. And just the process of creating comics, and I think Jack Kirby said it is like the imagination. Like my imagination has no budget. Like that's what I like about the idea of comics. Also, you're not limited by by your imagination. You can, if I like my background's in video production also, but if we need to create a movie, that's gonna require a lot of money to create, whether it's if we're gonna do special effects or whatever it is we're gonna do. But creating comics is really you're designing panels and stuff, and you're using your imagination. So that's the beauty of comics that I always like. There's no limit to that, and that's why I'm so drawn by comics as a medium.
It's true. No, absolutely. So people were patiently waiting. If you've not come to this before, Dynamite is they bring the covers. As you said in previous weeks, they bring the butts. So last week Dynamite had very little going on with their covers, but this week it is Dynamite is bringing the thunder to some extent. Like I'm still amazed. Dynamite puts out such a ridiculous amount of variants. It is absurd, but definitely a lot going on from Dynamite's. There we go. So the chat is very happy. Here is where's poor Jeff? I'd be blowing his mind right now. But
is the Deja Torres cover Linzer? I can't read. Is it Michael Linzer or?
I believe yes. One of them, yes, in the upper left corner. Yep. Absolutely. So anyway, lots of stuff. See, I care about the audience. It's Dynamite always delivers. Hey, here's a question. While we'll just leave this on screen. Why do people complain about retcons and inconsistent writing in comics, but refuse to pick up good, consistent comics like Invincible and Hellboy, despite what they're looking for? This is a good question. I don't know if you have a point of view on this, but it is one of those things that I know is frustrating. And I've talked to a lot of indie creators who are trying to deliver what fans are asking for, which are long runs, consistent characters, deep storytelling, and yet they're often told, "Well, I really don't buy anything that's not Marvel or DC." Like, what do you think about that?
I think it's like I'll give you a film analogy. When I was younger, I used to watch just blockbusters and big summer movies and stuff. And as you get more into film, you start looking at other directors, other smaller independent films. 90s was a big time for the indie early 90s in the U.S. You have to give these you have to give them a try because that's what I do. I just get collect edition. I've read Hellboy. I've been a lot of people have recommended Invincible. I haven't read it yet, but I tend to go more towards those books than Marvel DC at this point. I think when I was just collecting Marvel DC back in the 80s, it was like when Dark Horse was coming around, we wouldn't really until Byrne and Miller left to do Dark Horse and Sin City, and then I started picking up Dark Horse. But I think as you get older, your tastes change, and you'll start to experience other things besides just Marvel and DC. But it's a good question. Like I think you that's all is Marvel DC, and I think you just have to you just have to expand your tastes.
It's tough. I think, and like Jan points out here, it's like McDonald's. I mean, one thing Marvel and DC has going for it, they've got the momentum, they have the history, people know them, the brand is recognizable, and so even if you're not that happy, here we are, and people will often really struggle to go.
Well, yeah, I was in that stage too, where I was complaining a lot about what Marvel and DC were putting out, and then eventually you just stop caring and you move on from it because it's not really going to change. So, you'll get tired of it, and either you leave the hobby altogether, or you're going to discover other stuff.
I do wish more people would branch out a little bit. There is a lot out there, and especially it's tough to hear. People say, there's no good comics out there. It's like, no, with 100+ comics a week, there's something out there for you. You just might have to go outside of Marvel or DC every now and then to get maybe what you're looking for. And I think
Image and some of these other companies, Boom, those type of companies do have more interesting things that are coming out.
There are.
Ed Brubaker is one I didn't mention. I just love his work, and I'll read anything that comes out by him. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of there's a lot of style out there. Go. I apologize to everyone. We'll move the slide. I know, but I know. But let's head over here. So our last one, and there's that crazy Spider-Man costume, just to put salt in the wound, I think, for some people. But I should have mentioned before. I meant to do it, and we got off talking about something else. The chat got very excited about butts. Next week does give us the final issue of Harley Quinn White Knight. It is number 6. That has been a really good series, and one that I wish DC was promoting more, because it's a very good detective deep plot comic, and I do highly recommend that. I'll say that now before I don't think Sean's in the chat yet, so nobody will accuse me of kissing up, but he is. That is a really good comic, so I would recommend going to read that. It's got a nice old school kind of 80s 90s feel to it, but it's a good story. Mm-hmm. But over here, lots of Marvel comics, lots of King in Black stuff. Miles Morales is gearing up for the clone saga that he's got going on. So it is. I don't know. We do get the brand new Alien #1. So are you a fan of horror? Is that a comic that you check out?
No, not really. Is that Alien based on the Ridley Scott Alien, or?
Yes.
Okay. No, I didn't hear much about this one. So. And it's an ongoing series?
Yes, it is a brand new ongoing series coming out of Marvel. Salvador Larroca, I believe, is on the art. So it is, and I think Philip Kennedy Johnson is your writer, unless I'm mistaken. He's on that book. So a lot of good stuff here. And Sean, you are in the chat. I promise I was not kissing up. I really do love that title. It's a good one. But anyway, lots of good stuff coming out here. But it's still a lot of comics, and I think we've got to start figuring out a way that we can distinguish kind of what are the different categories. One of the interesting things Diamond is not doing, we've talked about before in this chat, is that of all these comics you're seeing, there's a number of different genres representing. There's plenty of superheroes for sure, but there's more slice of life type stuff. There is horror. There's a lot of different genres, but it's never broken out that way, and it feels like that's missing a huge opportunity. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We talked about your title before. How are you classifying it? Is it truly a superhero book? Is that where it's fitting, kind of in terms of a genre?
Yeah. So it's kind of inspired by the Ditko Lee Spider-Man run. So what I liked about that run was there was this sense of wonder and adventure when you're reading it. I also like the dynamic between Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Now, this was like, I don't know if you recently read those, but Peter Parker was like a really different type of Peter Parker than what he's kind of evolved into right now. He was a really like shy, introverted outsider. And then once he became Spider-Man, it kind of released this kind of inner alpha in him. I just found that dynamic very, very interesting. So it's part of it is based on that. We just made it a split personality where Jenny is very, very shy, introverted, and Arachna is very alpha, but they don't know what each other does, or they don't have memories of, once personality takes over, the other one kind of goes away. So there was the Spider-Man influence. I'm also a big fan of the old Batman TV show with Adam West, and
Yeah.
I love, there was a cliffhanger at the end of those shows, and the cliffhanger part of comics is something that I always liked. When we were collecting, what they call floppies now, but if you're telling a story, it would end in some sort of a cliffhanger at the end, and that was always interesting because you got to figure out like how this hero or heroine is going to get out of this thing. Same thing with that Batman TV show. I like the humor of that show as well.
Yeah.
And I believe while I appreciate what Alan Moore did with superheroes and going and Dark Knight Returns with Frank Miller going a very dark route, I do feel like superheroes need to be fun, colorful, and that's part of the book also. So it's really, it should be a fun book. And then I'm a big fan of David Lynch, and I really like the first season of Twin Peaks. So there's parts of that in there too, because it's basically anything that's influenced me over in pop culture over my lifetime. You want to try to you want to put that into your work. I used to illustrate way back when. I did it for a few years, and one thing about being an artist is you have to. I think it's one of the hardest things for artists to do is to take what's inside you and what you find interesting and put it into your work, rather than like just copy somebody or whatever it is. You're looking up to Rockwell or whatever, and you want to copy that style. But it's really more about, as an artist, what interests you, what do you want to explore, and put that into that work. And that's what I'm trying to do with Arachna.
Very nice. On the subject of horror comics a little bit, because next week we are getting Alien from Marvel, which is Marvel kind of stepping in more officially to horror. Do you have any points of view on kind of horror and how that works for comics? Obviously, it's got a really troubled history. There was a lot of the Comics Code Authority kind of came about.
It started from there.
Yeah, but it's been a really tricky route for a lot of these. What's your take? Is there any horror titles you've really enjoyed? And people in the chat, what kind of horror books and do you think horror works for comics? Frankly,
yeah, I think it really works. Swamp Thing, I'll just right off the top is it used to be Sophisticated Suspense, but that's the comic I really liked. Moore did a lot of good horror stories in there. It's funny you have Tales from the Crypt. I've been watching the HBO show. I was able to get some DVDs and been watching that, and Creep Show, the movie. I've been watching that as well. But I do have some Creepy Corbin collections that I haven't had a chance to read yet. But yeah, I think the cool thing about comics, and we're going to do this with Arachna also, is you can do different genres in the same book. So you can do a horror, there's no limitation on what you can do with comics. I do like the idea of horror. Wally Wood is also one of my favorite illustrators, and he did some of the older stuff for, I believe it was EC.
I think there's a lot of ground that can be covered there. It is tricky. I think it's weird because it felt like even though we have no Comics Code Authority, comics have struggled a little bit more with how to do horror lately. There's less restrictions, but people seem like they're struggling with that medium. It's anyway, a couple companies have tried, but it always feels like they most recently the Hill work over at DC, I think they tried and kind of made their way. We'll see how Alien goes. I don't feel Alien at Marvel though is going to really hit horror tones. It feels like that's going to go pure sci-fi.
It seems more sci-fi type thing.
I'll be surprised. I also, LaRocca doing horror, I'm not even sure what that would exactly look like, but we'll see what that looks like. Hey, I want to talk more a little bit about your book, but really quickly, I just want to be open with everybody in the chat. I'm really bad about promoting. A lot of people have sent me a lot of great work to put out. I'm still trying to figure out a good way to do this. I want to hit 2 campaigns that have sent their material for me. I'll throw them up on the screen. Try and figure out something to do in the future. I just need to get a more reliable method of how to kind of promote some of this stuff. I really want to promote not just crowdfunding campaigns, but indie books and kind of shift more the channel in that direction a little bit to talk about some things that are getting published out there that we don't hear about. I mean, Marvel and DC have great marketing budgets. They can take care of some of this stuff. I want to do more to promote some of the other guys. So let me get two here that have been. This is something that the creator has been sending me a lot of information out. Deuce Vault campaign ends here next week. That's out there. Probably talk more about that in the future. I think this is on Indiegogo as well, so you should definitely check that out. See what's there. I believe there is a history of some delivery, so you're getting something that you are, some confidence there. And then also Calico, Sigma Comics has been making a lot of noise out lately. And this is another one where they're really trying to sign up to do a lot of comics, 8-issue series. It's not just a one and done. So and it is funded and it's ongoing. I know they've got some good hype going for those books. So are there any crowdfunding campaign? Like I said, I'll cover more of these later. I don't want to just burn through them very quickly, but I do want to say that there's a lot of good stuff out there and want to push more indie work. Are there any other campaigns that you see that's on your radar that you would recommend people check out?
I recently funded the Dreadstar campaign, the Jim Star. I hate to keep going back to the 80s or whatever, but
sure.
There was a Dreadstar campaign that Jim Starlin did. I believe it's in Indiegogo in demand right now. I backed a Steve Root project of a sketchbook on Kickstarter. I tend to be kind of stuck in the 80s at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ground to be covered there, by the way. And I do hope that maybe some of these books that got early canceled or just weren't able to find an audience, the creators can come back. I love that some younger and newer creators are working with some of the older creators to kind of bring those properties back to life. That's awesome. I hope that there's more of that. Anyway, I would love to see that kind of stuff. Indie, this is a good comment. I'm curious to get your take on it. Is the term indie getting a new definition? Indie's gotten big at this point. You've got Marvel DC Image, and then you've got this big blanket indie. But I mean, when you're talking about like Boom, that just had a $1 million Kickstarter for Berserker, like, do you call Boom indie anymore?
When I think of indies, I think of Kickstarter, Indiegogo.
Okay.
but I feel like that's what independent comics are now.
Yeah, fair enough. There are small companies. I mean, Joe, who will come in and join us here in a little bit, he obviously has his book, Becstar, coming out soon with Mad Cave. It's a relatively small company. I mean, that's an indie company, but it feels like that this definition is getting very, very large, and we need to figure out some ways to broaden it. It's a tricky deal.
Yeah.
The conversation that a lot of people are talking about before we started the chat, people were asking if we were going to cover it. The Snyder Cut. Have you watched any of the Snyder Cut?
Yes, I've watched the Snyder Cut.
The whole thing?
It took about 8 hours, but yeah.
What was your take on it? Are you glad? Did it? I'm
glad for the fans that they got this through. Personally, I'm not really a big fan of Zack Snyder. The only really films I liked of his was his first one, which was Dawn of the Dead. I thought that was really good, but I think his style, I don't really like his superheroes. Like Man of Steel was just like very dark and grim and gray, and same thing with Batman v Superman. He's got a style which is very kind of like dark. To me, I'm not. That doesn't. It doesn't work with me. I feel like people have their own opinions or whatever. I feel like Marvel movies just kind of represent more of what superhero kind of style is for me. Mm-hmm. I thought this movie was, it was too long. I feel like the art of editing has been lost, and I just like it was. There was things that you could have cut from this movie to make it not a quicker, but just pacing wise, I think it was very slow. But there was, the upside was that it was a singular vision. It didn't feel like Joss Whedon, because there was a seriousness of Snyder in the first cut with what look at Coco Gal. I like her avatar. But there was the there was the kind of like the jokey kind of thing that Joss does, and it didn't fit. It was kind of like a weird mix that first cut. This seems like it was more done by one director, but I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea. I like. I don't know. It's just too dark and grim. Like to me, one of the best superhero films of all time is the first Superman with Chris Reeve. I think that had the wonder of superheroes. I think that had the humor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was just, to me, that's like when you compare that Superman, which is colorful, fun, exciting, and then compared to the Man of Steel. Now, listen, if you like Man of Steel, that's fine, but just subjectively, it doesn't compare. Like to me, Superman will always be that 1978, I think it was the Richard Donner, Chris Reeve version of Superman, and it's just like as a kid I saw it, and I was just like I lost myself in it. And as adult I see it, and it just captures that sense of wonder as a kid why I liked comics to begin with. So that's what it is. And I agree with Dominic here that as listen, whether you hate Snyder or you like Snyder, whatever, I think as an artist, if you can create a product that is free of interference from suits and people telling you what to do, I think that's probably the best way of getting a film out there.
It's by the way, if you drink tequila straight like this, you sniff a lot. I'm finding. It's going right into my nose. I like Dominic saying here, I was really glad to see Zack Snyder get to just realize his vision and just do his thing. That said, I mean, I wasn't 20 minutes into this movie that I'm like, I'm hitting the pause button and I'm like, oh my God, how much more is going on? Oh no, it's
that's why it took forever. 20 minutes in, I paused it too. And that's why it took around 8 hours to watch it, because it was like, I just kind of need a break. So yeah, I was kind of similar to you in terms of how I watched. Now, there were some good things with Wonder Woman, that scene where she's, that's kind of like where she's rescuing those hostages. I thought that was really kind of well done.
Yeah, that was good.
There's scenes that are well done in there, but to me, it's, it's just, it's too dark and grim, and I'm just, it should be. I don't see any sense of wonder in
I mean, the weird thing is that a lot of people in prep for this movie, they would talk about, I really hated the story, and I really hated like the Flash. I hated that character in the original, so I'm really looking forward to see Snyder in this, his vision. Mm-hmm. But it's still the same movie. Like the actors aren't going to change. The Flash is still the Flash. It's like he did more things. There was definitely some additions to this film. There was definitely some things that were changed, but it's not like you didn't get a whole new movie.
Well, I think you got a 2-hour extended cut of that first movie without like the Joss Whedon piece. So basically, if you didn't like the first movie, you're not going to like this movie either.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
And if you like the first movie, you'll probably really like this one because it's giving you 2 more hours of it.
Yeah, I mean that's just it. I was seeing somebody, I was kind of chuckling about it on Twitter, going, why'd they keep the Flash? It's like, well, what do you mean why'd they keep the Flash? He's a core character in this movie. What did you think was going to happen? Anyway, just kind of crazy.
The best Justice League to me is the cartoon version with Bruce Timm.
Sure,
I thought that was like really well done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean it's interesting to see where it goes. I don't know, for the people in chat, yourself. I don't. It's not going to continue. Like, we're not going to get Justice League 2 by Zack Snyder. What do you think they do now? Do they just kind of start over? They all do independent movies in their own universe, or like what does DC do?
I don't know what DC's doing, because you got the Joker, which is not connected to the Batman, and then you got this new Batman coming out, which is not really connected to this Justice League. I don't know what they're doing, but maybe if they just want to kind of do these one-off movies that are kind of like their own thing, almost kind of like these. I mean, they could put it under the multiverse banner or whatever, that these stories are just taking place in different, universes or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, and then you got a Suicide movie too, Suicide Squad movie, and I don't, I don't know what they're doing. there seems to be more of a clear vision in terms of what Marvel and they're trying to do. But that's also because it's under one guy. I don't know what's going on here with DC. I don't think there's going to be a Justice League 2. And even if there is, Zack Snyder's not doing it. So
yeah, it won't be this. It won't be Snyder. It's Marvel. Marvel's one of those companies where they have a vision, and I think it works because they have a lot of control over it. Feige, obviously, his whole mission is to keep things very consistent, tell a tight story. That will it's every year people say it's going to end. I think based on kind of the excitement and I mean, generally people were very into WandaVision. I don't think Marvel's dead yet by any stretch of the imagination, but it's
No, I saw Falcon and Winter Soldier today, and that was pretty good also. So I think I just think they just have a good person helmeting it, and I think they're in good hands as long as Kevin Feige's there, and then we'll see where once he decides to move on or retire or whatever, we'll see where that goes. But I mean, they're in good hands right now.
It feels like it will come to an end at some point. I do believe that's true, and I do think the interest will wane. I do think we've got an interesting scenario right now where this year I believe is giving us Shang-Chi and Black Widow and Eternals, which are arguably three of the weaker films. But by contrast, it feels like Disney shifted their strategy to have WandaVision followed by Falcon Winter Soldier followed by Loki. You've got a stronger assortment for Disney Plus, and it's going to be hard for them to get knocked off. I think DC's got a lot of work to do if they really want to beat them, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, DC's got, I mean, when they do something like the Joker,
sure.
That was a pretty huge hit. And I don't know if they're just better off doing these kind of like one-offs.
They might play to your strength, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. And plus, you don't have to copy Marvel. You can just do your own thing. So
you should do your own thing. Absolutely. Hey, I wanted to welcome in Joe Corallo. Joe, thanks for joining us tonight.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I just brewed some coffee because I'm going to be doing more writing tonight, and it's a good time.
So AI and I were talking about Snyder Cut. You just watched this movie as well, right?
Yes, and hi to the chat. But yeah, I just watched the Snyder Cut last night into today because I started it at 10 o'clock last night and it ended after 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I oh boy, that was not designed to be watched in one sitting, but when you're a person that's connected to comics on the internet, you got to watch this stuff or else everyone just tells you everything that happened and your life is just miserable.
Yeah. That.
So I'm like, all right. Which is why before I had work this morning, I watched, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. I want to be able to use the internet like anybody else.
Yeah.
So I'm going to watch the show. But yeah, Snyder Cut was
long.
It was very long. I'll give it some credit. I did not think that Steppenwolf would ever have like armor that had a sound effect, like he had wind chimes following him everywhere.
Oh no.
Was going to be the way to go, but hey, we got that. It did add some depth to Steppenwolf and fleshed out Cyborg some more overall. So I don't know if that was worth $70 million in 4 hours, but hey,
it's a funny thing. I like I mentioned before you joined, it was funny to see the reaction today, and AI, we were talking about this as well. Just it was funny to see people seemingly disappointed this morning that the movie was not like, at no point during the movie did the Sinestro Corps show up and just start attacking everything. And it's like, what did you think was coming?
Yeah, no, I don't know what people were expecting. And there's I mean, I have a lot of gripes with it that I think they ended up making some poor choices in some places. Like, don't show Darkseid fighting random people.
Yeah.
That scene, it weakens the character. Darkseid should be should not think it's worth throwing a punch against anyone less than, someone like Superman. It should very much be like everyone else is ants. Like, I don't run in the backyard and stomp on ants just because they exist.
You don't.
Right? Maybe I'm doing this wrong. So so it was very much like that kind of stuff. I'm like, you really don't get what the fuck this is, buddy. Like, what are you doing? It's awful. That kind of stuff. Not all of it was awful, but and I'm gonna say this too. I'm not one of those like I hate everything that Zack Snyder's done. I've seen an embarrassing number of his films in theaters.
Sure.
I saw
Sucker Punch in the theaters. I watched Sucker Punch in the theaters.
I've never seen Sucker Punch.
Oh,
but which I believe is Ash's favorite Zack Snyder film. Probably
it's Yule's too. They both love Sucker Punch. AI, have you seen Sucker Punch?
No, I've not seen Sucker Punch. I think that's the only Zack Snyder film I've seen.
It's everybody's favorite.
Yeah, but I've seen, I saw all the superhero related stuff. 300. Watchmen,
Sure.
Obviously Man of Steel, Batman v Superman. I saw Batman v Superman twice because I also saw the director's cut in theaters.
Yeah.
But and I went and on a date when I saw Suicide Squad, and let me tell you, we're not dating. I'll let you know that. That was he was very excited to see it, and it did not work out for anyone. Same thing with Joker. I also saw Joker on a date. I shouldn't see these movies on dates.
Yeah, that's dumb.
It's but it's fine. I still saw the movie. I didn't pay to see Joker, so it was a win-win. And it was a great time. Joker was fun. I'm glad he won the best actor, the Joaquin Phoenix, because it's burned into my mind when he lost best actor from Walk the Line, and how like enraged he was, which looked to me like the origin story for the Joker.
Jesus.
He looked like he was gonna murder people with a guitar after he didn't win that.
As they do. But okay, so you watched Falcon. So AI, you said you watched Falcon Winter Soldier and you liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was good. But I'm more kind of partial to that universe, I guess, like that whole film universe. So I think it's really well cast in terms of. I really like Anthony Mackie and oh my God, the other guy's name escapes me right now, but
Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, that would have been a good Anthony Mackie and the other guy. That would have been a good title for.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
I like it, but also to Joe's point, like you gotta watch these things right at the beginning, because I didn't watch WandaVision in the like when it came out, and like by the afternoon they were talking about Quicksilver being in that in the end, and that kind of ruined the whole like that episode, because you kind of knew he was coming. I think it would have been more cooler if you didn't know he was coming and then you saw him in there. But yeah, I mean,
it cracks me up when the people in the movie or the actors or producers come out and they talk about how like, whatever you do, don't get spoiled. Don't watch the internet. Like, what are you supposed to do? I mean, now, granted, I think it'd be great advice for everybody to stop being on Twitter, but you're not going to, like, when you put in these spoilers for these shows, I always love that plea of, like, please, everybody, watch out for spoilers tomorrow. I mean, what do you think's going to happen? Like, I don't know.
I don't get it. Also, and this is probably a controversial opinion.
Good.
So everybody, I hope you're all sitting down.
Yeah.
I hope no one's driving and listening to this. I don't want to cause an accident. But I personally think if something's really good, a spoiler won't ruin it.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So this is not me advocating everybody spoil things. Please don't. But if you accidentally
the whole time,
I did that to a bunch of people on accident because I didn't like that movie. And I was just ranting about it, and then I realized, like, people might still want to watch this movie.
It's their fault. That's what
it is. It is their fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when The Sixth Sense was coming out. I was on the phone with a friend of mine, Rebecca. Back when you had the phones on the landlines and people watched a normal, like a TV, and we were watching the same channel, and a commercial for The Sixth Sense came on. And I remember saying, I kid you not, I'll drag Rebecca here if I have to at some point to back me up on this, but I told her on the phone, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if like Bruce Willis was just dead the whole movie? And then we saw the movie together, and the scene, where he gets shot in the beginning, we were just like, oh no. And we're just watching this movie like, okay, maybe like this is going to be the reveal at like the end of the first act, and then the rest of the movie is him coping with being dead, and we're just waiting and waiting, and then like we reach that point, like 2/3 of the way through, like, oh no, that's the movie.
Yeah.
Oh God, no! Like it was a really bad time.
Yeah.
And
that's guessing the outcome. Like I said, that's not a spoiler. But anyway, I understand that. I think the going into a movie lower expectations always good as well. But we talked about the Cap No More storyline this morning. Before we went on the air, you were talking about kind of that Stern burn run of Captain America. Some of those. How'd you feel? Both of you saw it? How'd you both feel about? Did it capture the spirit of those old comics at all?
This the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they get the characters. I think they add something to the characters as well. And I just keep going back to the casting of these actors for these roles. I mean, they're just. For the most part, they do a really good job with them. And I think Marvel kind of gets their characters a little bit more. But I think DC, it could be a plus that you can give it to a director and kind of have his vision kind of like, take those characters and kind of do it in their own vision or whatever. So that kind of gives you that flexibility of not being put into like some sort of template. There's pluses to both of these kind of universes if that's the way they want to go moving forward.
Yeah. Overall, I liked it.
Joe, we were talking about Perch and I were talking about the Byrne Stern run with the Baron Blood, where Cap goes to England.
Oh yeah, the Baron Blood storyline where they bring back like Union Jack and all that. Yeah.
I just that one I really like. I think it's a 2-issue.
It is 2 issues. Yeah.
And spoiler alert, where Cap has to cut off Baron Blood's head with his shield. Those are really drawn nicely by Byrne. I believe Joe Rubinstein was the anchor on that, right?
He was, yeah. And Jim Salicrup was the editor on it. And it was there was a bit early on, I think in the first part of that, where Cap's stopping this guy with a gun in an alley, and he basically intimidates the guy, just like standing over him with his hand out to give him the gun, and the guy eventually gives up and gives him the gun, and it's one of my favorite Cap moments just of all time. This idea of him being able to, just through his charisma, get a guy to hand over his gun is just so fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the best runs, and Cap is dead the whole time. So spoilers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That also happened.
So
that was Jim Salicrup. We should talk to him at some point, Joe.
One of these days we'll talk to Jim Salicrup. He's a good guy. He wrote the Incredible Hulk toilet paper comics.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, little known fact. I don't know if people knew that, but yeah. Going to Falcon and Winter Soldier, I had very overall, I did enjoy it. However, there were a lot of points in that show where I felt like the people making it thought I was a fucking idiot.
Jesus.
And like there was this, especially with the Winter Soldier stuff, there was a lot like this is like a minor spoiler stuff where it's basically he's trying to redeem himself for killing people.
Sure.
And it's mostly about this one guy he killed in this episode, and he's trying to go back and make some level of amends. And the way they handled it was so poorly written. Like, it was just constantly being like that line. I laughed alone watching TV as there's this one line from this woman as they're talking in this bar, and she's just like, they don't have a word for a parent who's lost a child because it's the worst thing that can happen. And I'm like, I hate all of you. You're idiots. This is the dumbest. Like, are you? You think I'm this stupid? Like, there was a lot of moments like that, and then there was also a moment where he tries to, go back to like the guy who lost his son, and it's comical. I'm laughing because the guy opens the door, and then like the camera zooms in to like the like shrine he has for his kid, and it's just like, I'm not this stupid, you jerks. I know what this is. Like,
I should. By the way, I don't have a Falcon Winter Soldier pick. I should have been more prepared. So I apologize there.
It's just like, how, like, do people honestly like have conversations with each other? Like, the audience is really like, they're all the dumbest people who have ever lived in the history of Earth. It's not enough to just have the poor old man open the door for it to be awkward, and then for Winter Soldier to cross the name off his list when he gets back. We have to have the whole scene with the woman being like, a dead son's the worst thing that can happen, and then the shrine and zooming in on the shrine and staring at the shrine. It's like, you got like, I'm seriously, I'm telling you, if anyone working at Marvel, Kevin Feige, if you're in the chat, I'm not this stupid.
Jesus,
I'm really not.
I've got it. So we've got to. I've got to fly out to New York, Joe. We're gonna get to the same place and just do mean reviews.
Yes, we should. But other than that, it was pretty good.
Very good. AI, what is, so we talked about it, but you liked it? Any kind of big complaints you have there, or?
Other than I think sometimes these shows take a while because it's like 8 episodes or 10 episodes. I think there's some filler that needs, like, they put in there that I think we can kind of move quicker on. But there was one good line in there today. It was Anthony Mackie saying, when things get good for one group, it gets worse for another group, or something like that. Okay. It was, that was kind of like an interesting line in there. But I mean, part of it, you just like, even in WandaVision, I felt like the first 4 episodes were kind of like, I got it. They're trying to do something on 50s, 60s, 70s sitcoms or whatever, but like, let's kind of move along with it to the point. So I think we're going to get that here too. I think there's going to be a lot of kind of filler until we get to the meat, which probably would be around the middle of the show.
Definitely some decompressed storytelling. We are going to get Flag Smasher, or some version of it looks like.
Yeah, instead of Ultimatum, they're calling them the Flag Smashers, which is fine. I mean, they probably don't want to remind everyone about that awful comic that Jeff Loeb did.
Yeah,
but the Anthony Mackie stuff was mostly the best stuff in this episode, and not just because of the like movie level action scene in the beginning, which felt very James Bond.
Yeah, I got the same feel.
Yeah, which I really appreciated. But the only scene that I thought needed, like with Falcon, that I thought could have been a bit better was the bank scene when he's trying to get a loan, or his sister the loan for the house or whatever, and it just didn't play out in a way that made any sense. Like again, I think Yule was talking about too, how they get too jokey. Like, it didn't make sense. Like, you either have the guy not be interested at all in giving the loan from the get-go, or you have him be jokey, you have him be happy, and it's like the person above him who says they can't approve the loan, and then it's like awkward for him.
That's pretty weird.
But to do it where it's like, oh, I'm a jokey, goofy guy, by the way, no money for you. Could I get a selfie? I was like, again, like, this is, did this, we just watched a bunch of people get murdered, and now there's a scene that's made for toddlers that understand loans. Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Go interact with other human beings.
Absolutely.
Like, please, I'm begging you, writers of scenes like that, like, call a person and talk to them for like 5 minutes so you don't write a scene like that. Oh, yeah. That's what people sound like when okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks for the refresher. I'm going to go back and write this scene.
Which is a good segue to some comics from the past. I don't know. AI. This is, again, we do this bit. We talk about these are comics that are released in previous years, but this week. So this week, previous years. Obviously, this is from quite some time ago. But kind of a couple Legion superheroes. Any of these comics out here that you're reading, or do you remember?
Yes, I did read the Legion run with Giffen.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the Legion stuff is.
This anniversary issue was awesome, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I also love Jim Aparo on the Brave and Bold. His artwork on that was fantastic as well.
Yeah, I love this. I like this issue of Green Lantern. I like John Stewart. I like this pairing. It was something new. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
Oh, and Warlord with Mike Grell. I love that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's Warlord. And I said I would do this last week, but well, before we get there, I think we've also got this very odd Superman family book where a guy is like literally just throwing a jail onto Supergirl. Like, I'll be honest, I don't remember that villain. Did he just throw jails at people?
I guess so. I mean, I prefer my Supergirl free range, but
I mean, I just it's such a. I mean, that'd be a weird power he's like. If you look really closely, if you can see it on his belt, he's got like a little old school 70s key ring on there too, to maybe get them out.
Let's just come. Yeah. Oh God, this is
what is going on there. Like, and she can't, like, there's no cage on the bottom. Couldn't she just lift it off? It
might be gray kryptonite. Who knows?
I'm very confused by this cover. I do not know. He just locks people up. Anyway, I'm picturing a guy who just runs around throwing cages at people, and that's
you could call him the Cage Master, and or something like that. And don't tweet about that though, because I feel like the responses to Cage Master on Twitter would go south pretty quick.
Well, I don't think Master Jailer would do much better. But yeah,
No,
I think there's a lot of problems. And Green Lantern is this is one of the classic kind of problems with comics. This comes up. It's a de-evolution bomb. And there were a lot of stories around this time period where villains were trying to turn people back into cavemen.
Well, that way they would enjoy Marvel shows more.
God. There you have it. Yes. Well, I've said I do. Last time I said that in addition to just showing the covers, we would actually dig into some of the interiors of this. And if there's one comic here that definitely I know everybody would like to dig into interior with, it is Warlord. So here's what was going on this issue. I had forgotten how strange. So first of all, his girlfriend there can turn into a bird. And then they sit out and have a very long scene. Like, we've commented about how comics today spend a lot of time just people sitting around eating lunch and talking. And this issue of Warlord had like several pages of just sitting in a couch and chatting and having some coffee while he's dressed like it was, this is a long chat they had.
But, this is very common, I feel, for a lot of Grell's stuff, even like his Green Arrow and especially like John Sable. Like, he somehow mastered pacing enough where everyone complaining now about how everything's like people sitting around talking. It's like Grell was able to do that really well. There were a lot of little slice of life moments in a lot of his comics.
This was a big slice. This was like half the issue was in this living room. It was we had the turn into a bird scene, and then we had the living room scene. That was really what we got. So
I mean, it's a nice living room.
Yeah, it's got that 70s aesthetic. I don't know. Did you read Warlord there, AI?
Yeah, I read it. I don't remember a whole lot of it, but it was mostly because of Mike Grell's art that I was picking up that book.
Yeah,
It's been a while, man. I don't think I've read it since when it came out.
they haven't really tried. I wouldn't have pictured Warlord Slice of Life as as a topic, but
No, but also check out Mike Grell has a cameo in the movie Star Raiders: The Adventures of Saber Rain.
Mm.
It came out in 2017. I know about it because Riff Tracks did it for one of their screenings back when movie theaters were not a total nightmare.
yeah.
And
Okay.
that was a lot of fun.
Do you think a Warlord could make a comeback today? Is this a comic that they could publish in 2021?
I think you could publish a lot of things now. I'm not sure they would move or people would pick them up. I don't think, especially like this style, I think people would shy away from. I mean, I think they're idiots, but
yeah,
I think it would be.
Is he naked and there's a cat sitting on top of him?
No, he's got a loincloth, and that is his girlfriend. There is the cat.
Okay.
That cat's not sitting on him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, depends on your.
From a certain point of view,
he's kind of wearing that cat. Yeah. He's yeah. So the
Well,
girl on the cover is being worn by Warlord while he's sitting in the living room chilling.
The next scene is them at the hospital removing the cat.
Yes, it is. I mean, I don't know. Bendis briefly tried to get Warlord going, I think, in Young Justice, didn't he? I think he appeared there for like a second, but yeah, maybe if they put like X of Warlord or something. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So lots of things. All right, on the Marvel side, hey, here's how about these? Like these, there's definitely some big ones in here.
Yeah. I remember the Taskmaster, that first appearance, the X-Men Hellfire Club.
Some great stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Taskmaster, that Avengers run was a pretty great run. It had a little bit of Byrne, Perez, both of them in it. And then the X-Men Hellfire Club, that's right, before Dark
That's a
Phoenix.
big issue, yeah.
Just a great, those two really good.
Yeah, this was a pretty good week. That I believe that Fantastic Four was a reprint, I think.
Yes.
Yep. And then
but I think that's that Jim Salicrup edited that X-Men issue too.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah.
Which, well, we'll get to it in a second. That's we're going to look more into that one. I won't joke around by showing Conan, but I probably should. But yeah, I think this Power Man and Iron Fist was pretty good as well. They would get to Grizzly over there, and Peter and Jonah having to work together. I like how the Hulk, they are promoting the fact that the TV show exists. It is Marvel's TV sensation, so they're trying to cash in on that.
You got a Michael Golden ROM cover.
Yep, and he's dead again. This seemed to happen a few times to Rom. He would be dying. But so speaking of that X-Men issue, here's this was kind of the penultimate, the big one where we get the Dark Phoenix for really the first time.
Yeah,
and this was there's a lot of things going on here. But yeah, I'm always surprised. There's a lot of people who are still kind of discovering this storyline, but it feels like if people are trying to go back and kind of look at previous issues of X-Men or previous issues of Marvel, it feels like everybody winds up here at the Dark Phoenix saga. Is this kind of the go-to kind of linchpin into this time period?
I feel like it is for people, but also it shouldn't be.
Sorry, you say it should be or shouldn't be?
I feel like it shouldn't be. I feel like you need more context before you jump into here. And I feel like a lot of people try to be like, oh, I'm going to start the Dark Phoenix saga. But there's so many plot threads earlier that I think really help. Like, really around. I mean, I think it's more important to start from, giant size X-Men #1 and move forward there. Because if you read the collected editions, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to pick up the Dark Phoenix saga. It's like, who the hell are the Shi'ar?
Yeah.
What's this Phoenix? Because she already has the Phoenix power. So it's like, what's going on with this Phoenix? What is Mastermind doing? Why do they keep flashing back in time?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So, you really need to start earlier, or else I feel you don't get that impact. I hope that people, when they do read that, they then go like, I'm missing something. I need to go back and read it. But unfortunately, too often, and we've talked about this, is you might be like, oh, like, for example, since we talked about the Cap earlier, or, the Captain, that Epic Collection's like in print and nothing around it is. So, like, if you bought that this month and we're like, oh, I'm going to read this. This sounds great. Let me, I'm really interested in where this is going and what happened beforehand. Can I get any of it? No.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'm done then. Like,
yeah. No, it's a big problem. AI, when you were going back and looking at things, I read this collection with X-Men, and I remember I was not reading the X-Men at the time. I got this original trade, and I think I read the first issue and determined I had to go further back. But I could. There was easier ways to go back. It's weird to me that more than 40 years, no, not that long, but close to 40 years ago, it was easier to go find the earlier issues than it is today.
Well, it was so when I was growing up, I think I picked up the first X-Men was around 126, 127.
Sure.
And then I tried to get some of the older ones, and even back then they were around like $10. $10 a piece was a lot back in late 70s, early 80s. So it was tough to kind of get some of the older issues because it already started becoming a thing. But I agree with Joe that you really need to kind of, this was like a multi-year arc that they were working on. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that they put in, earlier from Giant Size 1 to, the end of this whole arc. And you to really appreciate it, I would say read it from the start. And you can do that with, if you have the money, you can get the omnibuses. You can kind of get, the Cockrum Byrne one, and then get the second one, which is goes back to from Byrne to Cockrum. But I would definitely read it as a set rather than picking it up. And Perch, you're right too. If they read this, they should say that I'm missing something here. That let me go back and fill in what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, because and I think this example here is one of those that you don't need to write every issue to be accessible to every new reader. You just have to put in enough of a hook that people will want to go back, and then you need to make the stuff available so they can. I think you'd want to do that because arguably you're going to be making more money in that process.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that it seems like a lot of modern commentary on comics is that we have to make every issue somebody's first issue, and they seem to abandon this idea of getting people to go backwards. And casual comic collectors used to love going backwards. That was pretty common, and they are today as well. You do see that when you look at the sales numbers of manga and some of these bigger events, people do go back and pick up those issues. They do it with long running series all the time. So I don't think that behavior is gone. It feels like kind of the big two have kind of given up on that market.
Yeah, it's weird. It seems like it's just a lot of there needs to be more synergy in a lot of this. There needs to be more of an effort to be like, okay, we're doing this storyline. Let's have this stuff back in print while we're also doing this. Let's direct people to know what else is tied to this for them to buy. The weird thing is, not only is there no marketing for the actual books, there's zero marketing for the collected editions or Marvel Unlimited or Comixology on where to go back there. They'll have bundles on sale and stuff like that through like Comixology, but like, when's the last time they really pushed like, oh, if you're really digging this, you got to get this Epic collection or this omnibus or something like that to get situated in what's happening, or this is where the subplots originated from or whatever. But part of this is no one reads what happened 6 months ago. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's, coming out right now, even from people I love, elements of Wonder Woman Dead Earth were in Immortal Wonder Woman, down to Diana getting Batman's utility belt. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, that came out months apart.
It's strange. Alton Davis brings up this point, and I'm curious to get your take on it, AI and Joe. The comic publishers make no money from people hunting back issues. It's true, but I also feel like that's a little short-sighted on the publisher side, because even if number one, they're still going to make money if there's trades or other collections. They're only giving away back issues, but if somebody takes the effort to go back and hunt up back issues, they're more likely to then subscribe and keep buying in the future. So you are gaining a customer in that process, even if you're not getting all the money.
Yeah, I think this is a lot based on revenue streams, and comics are not like, that high on every, like AT&T, in terms of like where their revenue is coming from. DC Comics not on. I mean, I think they're near the bottom. Same thing with Disney. I think they're looking at this stuff as more kind of like IP and just keeping the IP intact. I don't think they really care about comic reader. That's just, again, my opinion. But it also used to be a simpler time where if I picked up X-Men 127, that I know I just got to go back and get X-Men 126, 108, whatever it is. It was you just have to get the older issues. Now with all this renumbering, and I think it's just confusion where, let's say you do like something, I guess you can do your own kind of internet research and kind of find out what the previous arc was, but I think it's more difficult where it shouldn't be. I think it should, like with all this access we have to Comixology and all this stuff, that it should be easier to find like things that you like and backtrack and find other stuff similar. But I just don't think the comics are on top of. I think the characters and the IP is important, but I don't think the comics themselves are that important. It's not something that they're interested in pushing.
Yeah.
What about this comment? I think there's something here. There is a high turnover in staff, and that has to contribute to this problem.
It does contribute. I think for the specific example I mentioned, that Wonder Woman Dead Earth was Black Label, and then Immortal Wonder Woman is not part of Black Label, obviously. So you have different editorial groups overseeing it, so they're not going to necessarily communicate in the same way. So you can get elements from a Black Label book that coincide with what's happening in the main DC book. I mean, that's something that happened recently with Jim Starlin was really upset that Donny Cates's Thanos stuff was kind of overlapping what he was doing. Yeah. And I mean, these are things because it's different editorial groups doing different things, and they're not communicating with each other. So that was Marvel. Yeah, I think you'll right. I remember something going on with that, like a Marvel.
It was, well, there was 2 series and they were borrowing. I mean, I think Starlin kind of had this whole thing set up, and then Cates came in, they marketed it more, and I think they delayed Starlin. There was a whole kind of drama around that, and Starlin was going kind of dirty, as I recall, through the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, which is weird. It's the only time anyone's ever done Jim Starlin dirty ever. It's never happened before.
Yeah, he's always been
I love the story where he found out about Thanos being at the end of Avengers when he saw Avengers in theaters.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Same thing with Ed Brubaker finding out that they were adapting Winter Soldier when a friend of his told him that, the next movie is called Winter Soldier.
Well, why communicate?
No, it's true. I mean, it takes seconds, minutes in some cases to give people the absolute bare minimum. And are people worth the bare minimum? I think, having watched Falcon Winter Soldier, they don't think I'm worth the bare minimum. So.
Oh, no. Well.
Did you know there's no word for a parent that lost their son?
Jesus. Do you think that? Well, no, I won't ask this question. It's no. We'll move on. All right. Here's these are some more recent ones. This is kind of in the last 15 years or so of comics. Fun fact: I'm getting ready to do the Scott. People have been asking the Scott Snyder kind of sales run for Batman for his New 52 Batman run, and he barely did it. Like just by like a couple hundred, but he did manage to pull off the feat of 52 issues of Batman, all over 100,000 copy sales.
Oh wow!
Which is a pretty, that's definitely more rare in today's era. He managed to that's 100,000. He never dropped below 100,000 for that whole piece. But
yeah, so we're not counting All-Star Batman, right?
We are not.
Okay.
No, things definitely changed there. But
okay,
absolutely.
But no, Scott, if you're watching this, I love you. I'm just, I swear I was just kidding. But
Batman in a truck, so it's all good.
Yeah, no, it was that it was a different time. But
it was a different time. Yes,
it was. But I mean, he did. I know that you're not including like Black Mirror in that too, but that was also a lot of fun. Fun's the wrong word. It was miserable, but it was the good kind of miserable.
It's yeah, no, I do have the detective numbers in this analysis as well, and they're much lower actually. But anyway, AI. Did you do any of these? This is almost all events, by the way, if you look at it.
Yeah, the New 52 I didn't really get back into comics. I think part of it was I know what was it, like a reset or something, and all the history was wiped. Like I wasn't like at that time I was kind of like out of comics. What were they trying to do with the new? I know they were trying to get in a new batch of readers, but did they wipe out the history of these characters and kind of start from the beginning again, or like what was going on with this?
Yeah, I mean the New 52 was an attempt to kind of answer that question, like how do we get in new readers? Let's simplify quite a bit. So we'll just kind of keep all the things we like, and we'll say it's a jumping on point. We'll ignore all the history and do some new stuff, except where we won't. That's kind of I mean, it sold really well. I mean, a lot of people forget there's a lot of groans about the New 52 by the time 3 or 4 years went around, but I mean, they had a year of dominance of sales for sure.
Yeah, I was when a little before that started, I started working right by a Midtown Comics location. So I was all in on the New 52 when it first started, because it was only a few months or so starting the job that it hit. So I was by a big store that had plenty of stuff in stock, so it was really easy for me to just walk in and try out whatever I wanted. So I was in at that point, and my favorite thing about the New 52 was every 6 months or so they'd cancel a few books and add some more Batman books.
Yeah, that's true.
so that was a lot of fun. I really liked how they kind of let Grant continue Batman Incorporated and contradict some of the new continuity.
Yeah,
that was fun. I was all in on Batman. That Court of Owls and Owl City. Well, that's the band, but you know what I mean. It's
it was Batman versus Owl City. That would have been
I mean that also that was good. And then the death of the family. That was that was I was there for that. Greg Capullo does a good Batman.
AI, did you actually buy any of did you read any of the New 52 stuff when it was out?
No, I've not read any of it. And then just another question is, did they retcon it again, or is like the old history back, or like how?
They just killed that Superman. He's
gone. This Superman died.
Okay.
And then there was another Superman. They kind of merged everything together. It was kind of like it was like when Eric Larson had all the different versions of the Dragon just kind of merge identities into one. That's there you go. They copied Eric Larson.
Till all are one.
Do you guys recommend anything to read from that New 52 run?
I like the Wonder Woman run.
Yes, I really like that too.
Great. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was really good. Jeff Lemire's Animal Man was good.
Yeah, agreed.
Trying to think. Swamp Thing was pretty good. It wasn't like Swamp Thing in general is usually a good time. I haven't read too many Swamp Thing comics that I've hated. So that's if you want to do that. It's more of a lukewarm recommendation on my end, but especially that like first half of Scott's and Greg's Batman.
Yeah, before it got to the 0 year derailed it for me, but
but no, that was there was some good stuff there.
It had found an audience. It was at times a troubled audience, and there was some weird things definitely they were doing there. And then they hit the DCU period where we had Commissioner Gordon as Batman, and like Batgirl took a lot of selfies, and I mean it seemed to get very confused there at some point.
Yeah, and I hear you, Alton. I was buying iVampire. I was the other guy who was buying iVampire.
The two of you, yeah.
The two of us.
Was the Wonder Woman run the Azzarello run?
Yeah, Azzarello Chang. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did read that. I didn't think of it. I just bought the omnibuses, so I didn't think of it as New 52. That was really good.
Yeah, that was good. I love Wonder Woman, but they make it really hard to love Wonder Woman.
DC does.
Yeah, sure. DC goes out of their way, and anyone who hasn't listened to the Bill Loeb's interview we did earlier this week, I mean, he goes into a lot of details on it because people would have stupid things. They'd be like, "Oh, you got to do the contest again because you have to do the contest again," and Wonder Woman has to be a fantasy book, and just stuff like that. And it's like, you all are destroying the value of your own IP, and it's baffling.
Let's make them all evil. We'll make them all dark.
Everyone should be in a Dark Avenger.
Yeah,
like that. I loved when Bill was just telling us about that one editor who was just like, everyone likes Wonder Woman's cast, like supporting cast. Let's murder them so she can be a Dark Avenger.
Yeah, exactly. I love because we've seen that play out in comics. If any, and all of us have done it. We've read comics in the past, and you hit this issue where, for no apparent reason, like the supporting cast is getting kind of murdered off, and the hero is taking this dark turn and everything else. And now there was some editor in the mix, like, let's just kill everybody, and everybody loves that.
Yeah, I'm glad that two of the people we've interviewed so far, Bill and Nancy, were both two people that said, "Actually, I'm not going to kill them."
Yeah. I no, it makes me crazy. The whole thing, and it's very short sighted, and they're, especially when they kill the children, because there are no words for when a parent loses a child.
There are no words for when a parent loses a child, because it's the worst thing that can happen to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. This Superman Unchained book, and then we'll move on to some other thing. But that one didn't go well, did it?
I read the start of it.
Okay, there you have it.
And and it's no offense to the creative team. I love Scott, Jim Lee, obviously. Jim Lee, I'm throwing this out there, folks, and I don't know if people are gonna, this might be another hot take. So again, if you're sitting, stay seated.
Okay.
Jim Lee might be the Rock of comics. And to explain that further, he is a gigantic, like, rock star within comics who has rarely gotten to work on just something that's truly like a masterwork within the medium that like transcends comics. Like, he's never gotten to work on like a Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns or something like that. He's mostly worked on schlocky action kind of comics, and he is universally beloved like The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, and who could be mad with that kind of comparison? Like, how dare you compare me to that handsome, successful man?
Well, you could have said Hogan, I suppose.
I could have.
Yeah. That's an interesting. I think that it's weird that people will often talk about Jim Lee and they'll say, he's an amazing artist. I remember him on the X-Men, and it's like, Yeah, from 30 years ago, the X-Men. And then they're like, and he did some other stuff. And he's very beloved. Everybody loves him and everything else, but he hasn't had that major run, despite being. I mean, many people will quickly cite him as one of the top 3 artists around. But what has he actually? You know, it's weird. He hasn't done those big runs. People do tend to forget about Hush more than you'd expect, and they definitely forget about Superman Unchained.
Yeah, and again, it's not a knock on the guy. He's a great artist. It's just he never got that chance to work on like I said, like this, like a transformational kind of comic. You know, and it's interesting that, you know, it's not like, oh, he worked on, and I mean, there's plenty of stuff that people argue is, you know, good that isn't, and isn't good that is, all that, but he's such a like commercial success. You slap him on anything, just like The Rock. Like, you could throw The Rock in this stupid Tooth Fairy movie and people will see it.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You know, I'll see it. You know, I've seen so many movies with The Rock in it because he's great.
No, and it's just, you can share Jim Lee art with to people, and everybody will immediately recognize the genius of it. I think that's why DC uses him so much for a lot of the promotional work that he does. You know, it makes complete sense to use him for that. But he has a very limited, and Jeff here points out they jumped ship to Image before he could plant a flag. I think that's true. I think he's probably building there in Marvel, and he goes. Mumble says Tooth Favorite is his favorite movie. Okay. And who could forget All-Star Batman? Nobody can forget All-Star Batman.
Yeah. No, it's weird that he not only that, but he has worked on some fairly universally panned things like All-Star Batman.
Sure.
And it's interesting how that kind of panned out. But he's so good at he's the best there is at what he does.
Yes.
And no, he's so good at what he does, it doesn't matter. You know, he could illustrate, you know, he could do a 22-page comic on what it's like to read the ingredients to Cheerios and people will buy it.
No, it's true.
His name doesn't come up on a lot of, like, if you were to say, like, I haven't read All-Star Superman, but like if I talk to my friends, they'll be like, if I ask them what like the coincidental Superman stories in the last 10, 20 years, they'll say All-Star Superman with Morrison and Quitely.
Sure.
I remember Jim doing a Superman book with Brian Azzarello, and even that, like, I don't think a lot of people remember that one.
Yeah, for Tomorrow. That was
yeah.
But no.
In DC especially, he hasn't done anything that, like, you go, this was the take on this character, and Jim Lee was involved in it. In Marvel, he's got the X-Men, and he'll always have the X-Men. But in DC, it's a little different.
Sure, and I mean, Jim Lee's legacy on X-Men transcended well beyond him leaving for Image. A lot of his kind of look is what inspired a lot of the elements of the cartoon.
For sure.
So, like, he burned into an entire generation, just in their minds, like, this is what the X-Men look like. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to compare that to anything anyone else has done with X-Men, certainly. But
it's a good point. I think you can point to a lot of other artists, and they've had runs on comics, or, I mean, like, John Byrne has done a lot of things, obviously, but that what we were showing earlier, that Dark Phoenix run that he did with Claremont, people often talk about as a time capsule for the major story everybody remembers from Byrne. Mm-hmm. And it's obviously him and Claremont, but Jim Lee does not really have that yet. He's obviously one of the most influential people that have been out there. So it's a crazy thought. Jeff's going to write him with Legion of Superheroes. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, Jeff Thorne, Jim Lee, Legion of Superheroes. Let's do it. Absolutely.
I'll buy it. I'll call my shop right now. Let's do it.
What Joe is trying to say is that Jim never did any artsy, pretentious books at Comic Subs Control.
Well, they're if you're doing that, they're called comics. You have to pronounce it differently and put an X at the end, and you have to be smoking one of those long, like e-cigarettes with like those like circular John Lennon sunglasses. And you put on like a little, you get like a nice little scarf that you're wearing indoors. And you're just like, comics, and you talk about, people try to talk about, comics and all that stuff with you, and you just like push it all away, and you just talk about like, oh, well, I really like, the works of, and you list off like a lot of newspaper strip things, and you got to be like, oh, well, comics to me are, Little Nemo and Terry and the Pirates, and that's how you do it.
You've thought this through.
Yeah. I've been to Brooklyn. I know.
You've described the Red Skull from Grunwald's run.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure he read Terry and the Pirates.
Yes, I'm. Anything on this page that you've got Mike Zeck Iron Man there. You have
Fantastic Four by Byrne. That was the book that I looked forward to every month. It's a great run. And then also Master of Kung Fu with Mike Zeck on the artwork. Yeah. What if I was into the earlier issues and then I kind of lost interest in it? The thing with What If is it would always end with a bad ending. It never ended it was like a different take on a story, but it always ended in some sort of tragedy. And I think the only one that ended good was the What If Elektra Had Lived that Frank Miller did. Where they do kind of run off at the end. There's some good ones. The Defenders, I was a big fan of also. Marvel Team Up, big fan of that as well. Star Wars, I wasn't really into. I was more of a Trekkie when I was growing up, so I was more into Star Trek stuff. But
there was good stuff in this Star Wars run, but it was always kind of hampered by the fact that clearly nobody who was doing the movies paid any attention to the comics. So you'd be reading along in this comic, and like Empire Strikes Back would come out, and then they'd rapidly just like it would bear no resemblance to what had been going on in the comics, and so the comics has to quickly change pace. And I remember Return of the Jedi, it was the same way. It just like they had introduced all kinds of kind of crazy characters in different directions, and then suddenly it's like, and it was all a dream, and now there's this movie that happened. It was not good to be a Star Wars fan during this time period, as opposed to now where everybody is very happy as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
No. Is there a better time to be a Star Wars fan?
No, it's the community is very peaceful. Everybody is happy. They love what they got. There's something for everyone. Nobody has any complaints about Star Wars. As opposed to,
Well, they're putting the Ewok stuff on Disney Plus now. So.
Chef's kiss. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Ewoks 2. I'm looking forward to all the hot takes about Ewoks 2. The Battle for Endor is the best Star Wars movie and all that kind of stuff. Although, wasn't the villain in that the same witch from Willow?
Sure.
Am I losing it, or was that the same witch?
I like to pretend it's all a shared universe.
Because that witch in Willow was also Sarah Kingdom, who was the first companion in Doctor Who to die in the Dalek Master Plan.
Good God. Okay.
Just throwing that out there. It's
you guys,
all you Whovians.
How many times did Marvel characters like throw their costumes on the ground and walk away? You're Spider-Man. You put some effort into this, and you're just throwing your costume in the garbage. People are always like, there's a lot of comics there where characters are just throwing crap on the ground. It's not a good time.
Yeah, no, people are always doing that. Is that what was it? People are always throwing stuff and walking away. I guess that cover of Master Kung Fu is about how Peter Parker's not going to be Spider-Man anymore.
That's right. Yeah. That's what's happening there. Yeah, no, I like what they were doing with Spectacular Spider-Man back then as well. That's their cover was really nice.
Yeah, little did everyone know that Jean DeWolf was going to be murdered a couple of years or so later.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Yeah. Exactly. And then what if Thor battled Conan? I think we all know what would happen. Let's not kid ourselves.
Thor would win.
Yeah, I would be shocked if he lost, unless the Watcher got involved. And I'm sure if he got involved, it would be a whole thing where he's like, "I'm not allowed to get involved. Here's a Thor killing hammer. Don't say I helped you." Like,
Yeah.
God, the Watcher sucks.
Yeah, he does. He really does. By the way, if you're getting a commission from any artist, and William Messer-Lopez will do commissions for $100. It's an amazing deal. Get everybody to draw pictures of superheroes throwing their costumes on the ground and just walking away. Like that should be. You should just get as many of those as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
That's my advice to you. We have not pitched City of Bruce today. We can get to that in a moment. I do feel bad for Jeff Thorne, who missed the Dynamite gallery. So we're just going to go back and give it that to him right now. So I know he feels bad. Look at all this stuff you missed here, but we can get there. Here we go. There's our pile of Dynamite right there. So yeah, there you have it. We get it back. So
I think who is it at? I think Chris Conroy's in charge of Black Label at DC. So I think we have to pitch him City of Bruce. It feels like a Black Label book.
It absolutely feels like a Black Label book.
Yeah.
I do. By the way, in terms of these covers, there were so many more. This was like a third of what they're putting out next week of butts. So there was so many. And yeah, as Max points out, these ladies clearly already threw away their costumes. So yeah, that's what's happened. Yeah.
Are Vampirella and Purgatory taking selfies?
Yes, they are. It is a selfie cover, which yeah.
That's cool.
I like how Red Sonia down there in the bottom, like that chainmail is. She's got the plumber problem going on there. It's like that's doing no value whatsoever. But anyway,
no.
Sorry, everybody.
No, it's oh my god, it's I don't know. I feel like doing covers now where people are taking selfies makes you look so stupid now. Yeah. It's like, how far behind are you? It's like, oh god, you might as well have someone on the cover saying that this book is off the chain.
Yeah. I that's why I hate a lot of pop culture references in these books, because they die so fast. They just terrible. But anyway. How about this right here?
I did read Danger Girl with J. Scott Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
All-Star Superman, I have the absolute edition of that I got to read. Infinite Crisis, no.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Identity Crisis?
We should probably eventually do that one.
I was surprised. So Identity Crisis, I did not like, but I did the sales video for it. And what I was surprised by was almost everyone came in to say how much they love that comic. And I did not see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that comic was so polarizing, and I back when I was selling it was more negative polarizing, I would say. But maybe it's aging well. Did you enjoy Identity Crisis?
I remember reading it. I liked it, but I want to read it again just to kind of see how it's aged. But I liked it when I did read it, is it Meltzer wrote it, right? So yeah, I enjoy his work. Yeah. So I liked it. I thought it was an interesting take on a Justice League story.
So, and for those, I don't blame you there for the question. So, Identity Crisis was the one where Sue Denby gets murdered.
Yeah.
And Infinite Crisis is where the Wonder Woman kills Max Lord. I think.
Yeah, no, she does.
That's so now, there's been a lot of crises, but yes, that's the somebody's always dying in there. But yeah, there you have it. This was a time when I think all these comics you're seeing on this screen were landing in the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Nice, well. Yeah.
So these were all very high selling comics back in the days. This is Spawn from this time period was just always just selling out. And yeah, see, Jeff's with me. I was not here for Killing Sue either. That was not I didn't enjoy that, but apparently a lot of people today are.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything more fun than just like dancing on someone's brain?
Yeah, and that is that's also where they had Dr. Light was a rapist, and then they made his brain mush. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a good time.
Yeah, it was.
How was Doomsday Clock? Is that any good or?
I thought it was a decent story. It suffered, though, from delays. And then it also suffered that about midway through it, you started to get the impression that DC wasn't going to care about it anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean,
here's a hot take. I really love Gary Frank. I think he's...
That's not a hot take. Gary Frank's awesome.
Underappreciated artist. I wish he would be doing more. I feel like it's the same thing that Joe said with Jim Lee. Like, I feel like he does these, like, there's not like some sort of book that you go... This is like Gary Frank. Like, yeah. I have some original art of his too, because I just love his work so much. But I just feel like more people don't know Gary Frank. Like, I feel like more people. He should be more of a fan favorite, I guess.
Okay, I'm with you there. Gary Frank does not come up in a lot of conversations, and he has absolutely delivered, I think, some of my favorite books over the last 20 years. I mean, we've mentioned this before, but Midnight Nation is like, that's amazing. If you haven't ever read that. But I don't know. Why do you think, Joe? Why doesn't Gary Frank get more love? Do you think?
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, when you're doing like, I think part of the problem here, like for example, Doomsday Clock.
Yeah,
he's working with Jeff Johns, so it's a Jeff Johns book.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
so I think he might suffer from that kind of situation where his higher profile gigs have been with writers like Jeff, who are so well known that people go like, "Oh, you mean it's Jeff Johns' Doomsday Clock? Let's talk about Jeff Johns. This is a Jeff Johns book."
That's a good point. So he's almost like the opposite Jim Lee, where he's got like really solid runs on. I mean, he does have like Midnight Nation, certainly Doomsday Clock. He's done a lot of things that are just very solid runs, but he gets kind of hidden underneath the writer.
Yeah, like J. Michael Straczynski or somebody else, and I just like his faces, anatomy, everything. It's just so.
Oh, he's great.
So good, like and when you say like what are some of your favorite artists or whatever. There's artists that come up, but Gary Frank should be coming up more in these conversations. Or maybe he just doesn't do enough output or whatever. I don't know what it is, but I wish there was more Gary Frank books out.
Oh, yeah. No, he's a better workhorse than I think people realize. I think he does have a lot of comics to his name. But yeah, Peter David, JMS, as Ash says here, Gary Frank is doing the upcoming Geiger book with Jeff Johns. It looks amazing, but once again, it's being a lot of the marketing is like Jeff Johns is doing an indie book. It's like, and so it's Gary Frank. I mean, I guarantee you, if it was Jeff Johns and some kind of random nobody, it's not gonna sell nearly as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's a good point. That is definitely not a hot take. I've never met anybody who does not like Gary Frank. So,
yes. I want to ask you guys: was there a comic that was ruined because of the artwork, where you couldn't get past a bad artwork?
Oh my God, there's too many.
So many. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's tough thinking of some examples off the top of my head, only because I'm a snob that tries to read good comics. Mm-hmm. But there are definitely there's that, or there are comics that the artist doesn't fit the kind of book they're on. Like sometimes they'll pull in certain artists for fill-ins on like big 2 books that have to like rush to get the book out. And you'll see that, like, I want to say who, like, for like Charles Soule's She-Hulk, I think Ron Wimberly filled in for a couple of issues, and I thought if that was him, it might have been another artist, but I thought it was him. It's been years since I read this, but I thought that didn't mesh at all with the regular art on the book, and it pulled me out of it. So, you know, like that kind of stuff.
Max Fish is saying Secret Wars 2 by Al Milgrom. Wasn't Al an editor?
Al was an editor, an inker. He did a lot of things. Milgram is interesting because he's very polarized. I've never felt strongly anti-Al Milgrom, but the problem is a lot of people are either indifferent towards Al Milgram's art, I feel, or hate him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There aren't people who are like lining down the block being like, get me some Al Milgrom. I like, is Al Milgrom going to be at this store? I got to get me some Al Milgrom. Like,
no, I mean, Tom Morgan kind of had the same thing going on. And
sure.
Paul Ryan, I think, was another one that would come up a lot of people didn't appreciate him for whatever reason. There are a bunch. It's weird that people would get strange things in their head. I remember that, and people will be, but Mignola would be put on books, and if you were not up for his style, people would just hate that. Now, I always loved everything he did, but it was that Wolverine Jungle Hunt, where it was Wolverine against Apocalypse, and Mignola did that. I remember people just hated that thing, and it was great.
To me, it was Rising Stars. Like there was like the first few issues, they just had like that typical kind of like that image or artist in there, and I liked the story, but there was a few panels where you couldn't tell these characters apart when they're talking, and it just like kind of turned me off to the whole thing. And then I guess I heard they put Brent Anderson on there, and that improved the artwork, but like the first few issues just kind of ruined that whole book for me.
This comic, I read Die with by Kieran Gillian, and I would agree with this statement. I'm not. It's either artwork or the coloring. I kept feeling when I was reading this comic that I wanted to like put it into Photoshop and boost up the light. Like it was the comic was the art became very distracting, that book, and I do think there were some good people. Liefeld on Cap. I think that's another decent example. By the way, if you want to really piss off Liefeld, just point out that profile picture of Cap where he's got the triple H chest going on there. He will tell you that was promo art that never actually appeared in the comic, and it's totally unfair to judge him for that. And he's technically correct. That art never appeared in his story. However, it was promo art, and they gave it away to stores, and a bunch of ads were always were run in the comics featuring that art. It has been printed in comics, just it was never part of his comic. But anyway, Michael gets really pissed when you talk about this whole.
But like there are some other examples too. Like unfortunately, I like a lot of different kinds of art. So I run into, a lot of people will be like, oh, I hate this and stuff. And I was like, oh, well, because I also like, your, was it like your Mike Allreds, your Paul Popes, your, Darwin Cooks and stuff like that. But I found certain people hate that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that. I like the book Clumsy. The art's atrocious from Jeffrey Brown, but it's great, and I'm sure it's turned a lot of people off from buying it. It's sold really well. I think I own a 7th printing of the book. But yeah. Geez, I like a lot of super pretentious books. Anything from like Daniel Klaus, Charles Burns, Art Spiegelman. I love like Asterius Polyp from David Mazzucchelli. If you ever meet David Mazzucchelli, don't talk about Daredevil and Batman. Just talk about Asterius Polyp and stuff like that, and he'll be all about that.
How about we got some other books on the screen? What about Dazzler here?
Oh, big fan of Dazzler when that came out.
Yeah,
way back.
There were good covers. That book had very, very good covers. Even and this is Sienkiewicz, I think.
Yeah,
maybe not.
That was a book they really wanted to do well.
Yeah.
that they really put that time in, and just no one was biting.
No, it was one of their lower selling, and we talked with Martha Thomas's Dakota North was definitely outselling this book, and yet
Oh yeah,
Dazzler was. I mean, this is issue number 32, so it would be one of the longest running Marvel comics out today if it was.
Yeah, I think at some point we should do the Dazzler the movie graphic novel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be a fun one. We should also do that. Oh God, what's that? There's that one like Aladdin's something that none of us, like both of us, hadn't read, and like I'm like we should do one of these that like neither of us have read of like an older comic, and be like, what the hell is this?
What is going on? So first of all, it's some things to draw your attention to. And AI, you've got a bunch of books here you recognize. There's Miss Marvel, and it's promising. If you look, it's too small. I should probably make these covers weird. Action, action, action. I like how this comic is like we're just going to repeat that same word. And even Avengers can die. Spoilers, none of them die. But anyway, this is good. John Romita Jr. Uncanny X-Men.
Yes,
I do think it's funny because there's a lot of people in the chat, and I mentioned to some other people who hate his current art in Superman. You do need to go back and like he did amazing work back during this period of Uncanny X-Men, and you really need to go check him out. There's a reason why a lot of people like John Romita Jr.
He did great work on Spider-Man too.
Yeah, he's got some very good comics. If you really were turned off by the recent Superman, please just go back further. He's got some good stuff out there.
Well, this is the same thing with like Frank Miller. I mean, Frank Miller drew his first Daredevil run, and then you look at what he did with like the Dark Knight Strikes Again. I mean, like what the hell?
Things change.
I can tell you, I like Frank Miller's like style now. Like it's the only one of those like 80s artists. I kind of, because it's like it's playing with negative space a lot. It's just very rough now, and for some reason I just really dig it. Byrne not so much, like what he's kind of evolved into, but for some reason I really like what Miller's kind of turned into. I don't know, and it's just me because a lot of people can't stand it, but it's just like a simplistic type of thing. I don't know. I tend to like what he's kind of. He's taking shortcuts and all this stuff, but I find it interesting what he's doing.
Yeah. No, I mean it's nice to see people's styles evolve a little bit. Yeah, Neil Adams, people are saying in the chat. That's a good topic for some point of like artists that have really changed over time. What's going on with the? By the way, why is Rom posing like that to shoot the Hulk in the belly? Like that is one of those. He has got no leverage with that gun. I get. I mean, is a goal there that he's trying to get the character to get down further enough so they can fit in the logo up here? Is that what was going on?
I don't know.
Like
if Milo Manara did that cover, we'd be in trouble.
Yeah, that's a strange. And this again is Sienkiewicz, I think, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an odd choice. Yeah. And Master of Kung Fu there, I'm thinking that the giant black cat there is not going to leap into his crotch in this one. So that's
fair.
Yeah. The day the thunder failed. It's anyway, some good stuff.
But oh my God. So what was I saying? Oh, since I brought up The Dark Knight Strikes Again, just a fun fact, Cosmic Boy appears in that. As like they do the whole thing where it's like the Joker sort of thing. It's been a while since I read it, but he makes Cosmic Boy this like awful person in that book because he did that as a fuck you to Paul Levitz, who he hates. And Paul, was like the I think he was already he might have been publisher at the time it was coming out, and that's the story behind that.
That's great. I like how the pettiness kind of just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you're enjoying this, if you don't mind, shoot a like to the video. That's always very kind of you when you do that. Thank you very much. And I will be putting this up on podcast as well. If you want to watch it later without any ads, that's always nice. So There you have it. Or if you're watching it at this point, like an hour, 2 hours into this, and you're like, why did I sit through all the ads? You could have been watching on iTunes. So sorry about that. All right. Oh, that's all the comics I got. Well, hell. Okay. I was playing around with Photoshop earlier and I messed with the logo. So
there you go.
Yeah, I can go back to the Dynamite covers if people would like, but
that's fine. But we can also, God, what else is there? Comics. Yeah. They kind of suck, huh?
Well, so what? There's some stuff you're reading right now that you're enjoying, I'm sure. What kind of stuff are you reading right now, other than actually important piece of business for both of you?
Sure.
So AI, you've got, once again, if you're coming in late, you've got your Indiegogo. It is a fully funded comic, so that's good. It's safe. Plus, it's still open, so you can still go in there and get it, right? And you just search. I'll put it in the description, but I'll put in Arachna in the description of the video. But you can search Arachna in Indiegogo and get right to it. It looks like you're putting a lot of skill into it. Like, the book looks good. It looks like some care is being put into it.
Yeah, it was really important to make it. Like, I'm in marketing, and people don't care about, like, when you're working for a small company or a large company. It's like you're going to compete with the best out there, and people are going to compare you to the best out there. So I wanted to make sure we got the best artist, writer, colorist. And put together a package where if you see it on this page, and if you want to go look at something else, it'll compare well to that. It's part labor of love. It's part, again, something I would want to read. And I felt like I had like one shot at this to do it right. So you kind of go with your best foot forward on it. And from the design of the Indiegogo page to the video, to all the add-ons, everything, I just wanted to make it look really, really good. So, this is our first campaign, and we hit the goal in 2 days. So, I think we've connected with a lot of folks out there in terms of what this book is going to be.
Well, I wish you all the success in the world. I'm glad you're funded, and people should go check it out. It looks like a really nice book. Where are you going to take it anywhere else besides crowdfunding? Are you going to put it up on Comixology or anything like that? I'm
probably gonna do Kickstarter after this. So the reason why I went Indiegogo compared to Kickstarter was I felt like the reading up on Indiegogo, the algorithms and stuff, they kind of promote you if you have good sales and if you have good traffic to the page, and it's more of a algorithm based on that, compared to Kickstarter, which is like, if in order to get like to the projects we love or something like that, somebody has to pick that. I just felt like this was a better platform to as a new new company and a first time project. I kind of felt confident in my knowledge of marketing and trying to get this thing out there, that this was a platform to start with, and then I'll probably do Kickstarter after this, just to try to see what the different, even between Kickstarter and Indiegogo, there's a different crowd that goes to both of those sites. So we'll do that as well. But knock on wood, it's really the creative team who's kind of put this together. That I just feel very thankful.
I wish you a successful book. It looks great, and I'm glad you got it funded, so you're just pushing ahead. So wherever people should go check it out. Ash is saying read Firepower. That is a very good book. We should give that some more love. There are some very good books out there. Joe, you also final order cutoff for Becstar is coming up pretty quickly, right?
It's the 25th, so next week.
Yeah.
Joe, is that Indiegogo or is that Kickstarter?
No, this is through Mad Cave Studios. Okay. It's being published through them. Or final order cutoff's the 25th, and it'll be in stores on May 5th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely go check that out. So call your comic shop, confuse them by ordering lots of copies of this, and we'll spike up this number. It's a good book. You can.
I would love that. There is if the orders are really good, and when you're dealing with a smaller publisher, that's this is all relative. They'll probably let me keep doing more comics, whether they know better or not. So
yeah. as they should. And this
Yeah.
is all a very short, hop over to City of Bruce, which is our in game. So we're
no. Well, we just ride this out, and yes, Nottingham from Mad Cave came out recently, and people have been enjoying that. Terminal Punks from my buddy Matthew Ehrman and Shelby Crispy, I think, is the artist on that. But Matthew Ehrman's great. Definitely look into his stuff. They're just put back out Long Lost through Scout Comics. Which is the first book I read from Matthew Ehrman. They're reissuing that. If you didn't catch that back when it was coming out, it's a very like Silent Hill kind of comic. I really like that one a lot. And they're doing some good stuff. Chris Sabella has a book at Mad Cave as well. It's all coming together there.
Let's make it all happen. Like it's the comic version of GameStop stock. So yes, let's do that. And yes, even with that purple color palette on the comic, it's going to be good. So
yes. Even with that what kind of lighting.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you everybody for coming. AI, thanks for coming on and promoting the comic. Hope people do come check it out. And Joe, as always, thank you for spending the time with me. And we got lots of things coming up, right?
Yeah, no, there's lots of things coming up. I think what was it? We're gonna keep doing more things. We've teased that we're gonna talk Space Beaver soon.
Yes, Space Beaver soon.
Space Beaver, definitely, that's gonna happen. We're gonna keep interviewing people. We've been asking around a few different creators, and some are foolish enough to talk to us. So.
Yes, Joe's going to be excited. We'll talk off the air, but I finally got an email back from somebody that we've been wanting to talk to for a while that had a little X-Men run once upon a time.
That's I cannot wait for that. Yeah. And people are not going to understand it.
Yes.
But I am so excited. And I mean, there's other people that we're talking to someone tomorrow, and that should be fun. And another cool thing about this is, when people would talk about like, what was it? Perch would burn people over saying those things that like writers would say, like, I'm not going to give the audience what they want. I got to give them what they need. Mm-hmm. And how that comes off pretty awful. In this instance, we've actually, I think, managed to interview people that people didn't know they wanted to hear from.
That's right.
I think we've actually pulled it off. Other people can't, but we've done it. And I think that makes us pretty great.
Yes, chef's kiss. It's
absolutely chef's kiss. We should like each other's tweets and all of that. But no, it's pretty great. I don't think people were expecting Bill Loeb's, and that one did really well. No one was expecting Glenn Greenberg, and people really liked that one.
Yeah, please go check it. These people have a lot of really good stories to tell. Again, like yourself as well, AI. These are good comics people are making. We want people to hear about them. So no clues at all about who we're talking about, but we're looking forward to all of that. So it should be great. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have to be careful, because what would end up happening all too often is, like, if we don't like check ourselves, this would quickly degenerate into the X-Men and Vertigo show.
Yeah, that's true.
Because watch, like 6 months from now, we'll have Peter Milligan on and just tell us about Vertigo.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Tell us about Vertigo and Ecstatics. Like it's just going to turn into like a list of like, you've worked on Vertigo and X-Men, so we'll talk to you. And
yes. Hey, Joe, before I go, I just wanted to ask you what like some of your favorite runs were in comics of all time. Like, just give me like 3 that come to your head.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little earlier. I think the Grinwald run of Cap, which I was just reminded about. It's funny to me because I like so many different runs on comics. I tend to like ones where the writer is on there for a long time. That's why I do remember the Claremont run so fondly, the Perez run. I'm I'm come to the conclusion that maybe a writer has to be on the title for several years before I really, really enjoy it. So I think a lot of my favorite runs are in the 80s, and it's because they gave more freedom for people to do that. There were, writers could work for 3 to 4 years. So, I mean, definitely that Cap run, I think, is a big one. Some great Spider-Man runs during that time. But probably, the Legion of Superheroes has multiple runs during its lifespan that just remain my favorite of all time. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, it's tough because the Legion is definitely Legion of Superheroes. I have a hard time picking a particular favorite because I'll just be like, oh, you start in like 1958 with Adventure Comics 247, and then you go until like the early 90s. I'm not kidding. That's like, I'm like, that whole run has very few low points. I always say Starman by James Robinson is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh yeah.
We should bug him to come in and talk to us. He's great. And then we can go to a strip club with James. He'd do that.
I like his Air Boy.
But Starman, I mean, oh my God, that's just absolutely one of my absolute all-time favorite runs. Danny O'Neill and Dennis Cowan on The Question. I could potentially try to talk to Mike Gold and have him talk about The Question with us because I know Mike, and The Question is just one of my all-time favorites. Was it Mike Grell's John Sable is up there for me. I don't know if it's top 3, but it's up there.
I love it's not as long a run, but Zot also remains one of my favorite comics of all time, for sure. So lots of good stuff.
Yeah, David McElhenney on Iron Man and on Spider-Man is up there for me. His Spider-Man, I mean, everything from like 296 through at least 350. Then he's off for a bit because they do that weird Round Robin event, and then he comes back, and then it's like Carnage, and so like from 296 to 350 is a really solid run on Spider-Man.
Somehow, I'm going to next time I go back to Japan, I'm going to do what it takes to get an interview with Rumiko Takahashi. Would be absolutely somebody I have to. I've chatted with her before, but I'd love to do an interview with her, and that would be amazing. Have to have a third party in there to help, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that would be. New Teen Titans by Wolfman. I've talked about that. Everything from the beginning of that through the Judas Contract is top notch. Fall of the Mutants is a great event sort of run there. Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol straight through Rachel Pollack's Doom Patrol and the Silver Age Doom Patrol are all high on my list.
Yep. How is this is a question for both of you, AI and Joe? What your favorite X-Men event? Joe and I have talked about this. He knows what mine is, but what's your favorite X-Men crossover event?
Joe, you go first.
It's hard for me to not say the Fall of the Mutants. I just love that one.
Yeah,
so much. It's probably that. I'm trying to think of any others. Like, for the most part, X-Men crossover events are, as far as I'm concerned, they're tolerated. They're never that good. They're fine. They're reasons to get people to buy the other X books. But the Fall of the Mutants felt good in part because they were doing their own thing, and it wasn't like a real crossover. Once they started doing those, they're just not good. I liked Age of X. Age of X is like my dark horse candidate for something like this, where I'm like, that was an under the radar X crossover event, but it was pretty good. And like that one I enjoyed. But then there's other ones like Messiah Complex and Second Coming that are very like fine. What do
you say? Okay, so what do you say, AI? What are your favorite X-Men events?
I wasn't really big into the events, but I guess the extinction
Extinction Agenda,
yeah, that was good. But I'm kind of like old school with the X-Men. It's like the Dark Phoenix saga, the anything from that giant size X-Men 1 to the Paul Smith run. I think that was really good.
Oh yeah, Paul Smith's great.
Dave Cockrum, again, a really underrated artist.
Absolutely.
Just love his work, and the costume designs are really Dave Cockrum for the X-Men, and I just love that time of the X-Men. That was kind of like my favorite 3 runs were the Claremont Byrne Cockrum X-Men, the Alan Moore Swamp Thing, and the Frank Miller Daredevil. If I had to pick 3 right off the top of my head, those were kind of like the 3. And it's funny because it was kind of like that age where you're in your teens and you're kind of like a loner and outsider type thing, and these were kind of like the escape into the it was just escapism at its best, I guess. You kind of forgot about the real world stuff, and you kind of just lost yourself in these stories, which were really, really fun.
Yeah. Well, everybody, look, so thank you for coming tonight. Joe and AI, thank you for spending all the time with us talking comics. Always fun time. And let's go check out the Indiegogo and go re-reserve Becstar. And I'll see you all next week.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Good meeting you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good time. Thanks.